like to welcome everybody back to the Day 2 podcast. Had to take a little bit of a break from last week because, I just got kind of busy. I am a full-time college student with 2 jobs and trying to actually, do stuff to actually become what I want. Anyways, we're back this week. We're supposed to have a guest, but that didn't end up working out, so it's just me. And we're going to start off with the big news of the Daytona 500. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. won the race. I picked Kyle Busch to win it. He was damn close, I'll say that. You really just can't get much closer without winning. You can, but not really. It was him, Austin Dillon, William Byron, and then Keselowski and Buescher. Realistically, Austin Dillon probably isn't pulling out of line because he probably won't get any help. William Byron probably isn't going to pull out of line because Keselowski and Buescher don't want to sit behind him. So, if anything, Buescher and Keselowski were probably going to be the ones that ended up winning the race, granted if they don't wreck. However, we got a caution with, I believe it was 2 or 3 to go, which is the dumbest thing I've seen. I hope we don't see that for this year. Riley Herbst earlier in the race spun in the grass next to pit road. No caution was called, and reasonably so. He was off the surface. There was no threat of anybody hitting him, so there was no point in really calling the caution because he was able to collect his car. But then Daniel Suarez spins in a very identical spot, and yet they call the caution almost immediately. That's BS. That caution should not have been called at all. And that is simply a case of NASCAR just trying to generate drama in a finish, when honestly, if you ask me, the finish would be better without a caution. We were getting set up for possibly an all-time finish. 2 teams with the teammates linked up, battling for the win, with somebody who has no affiliation with them other than one he has the same manufacturer with the team, which honestly, it seems like it matters early in the race, but nobody cares at the end. Nobody cares. It's all for yourself or for your team. Buescher wants to do what's good for his team. Honestly, Buescher is a team guy. Austin Dillon, that is his grandfather's team. He is gonna play the team guy there. William Byron, he has no affiliation with those other 2 teams. He doesn't care. He just wants to win. This was set up to be his first Daytona 500 where he finished on the lead lap and didn't get wrecked. But since that caution came out, Kyle Busch the RCR teammates tried to link up on the restart, stacked up the middle lane. Austin Dillon backs off into turn 3. Byron's on his bumper. They wreck. 20 cars are involved. That shouldn't be what we're trying to get out of the 500. I understand sometimes it happens. If a wreck happens that brings out a caution, and then that happens, that's on the drivers. But if somebody spins off the racing surface, is in no threat of being wrecked or doesn't need any assistance, keep it green and leave it up to the drivers. A lot of people are saying that we need to get rid of overtime rules. I'm not a big proponent of that. I think overtime is a good thing because nobody wants to see the race end under caution. And well, yeah, it still can. I'd rather see it end on the final half of the lap than the final 5 laps of the race. People go out of their way so much to try to find a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. There isn't a problem with overtime rules. It's a problem with the officials and the way NASCAR polices cautions. This was a relatively tame Daytona 500. And part of that, what comes out of a tame 500 is a quote-unquote boring product because they're not wrecking all the time. And the commercials, which is another big problem of the weekend. I did my own little test thing. where I timed it towards the end of the race of how long the commercial break was and how long the green flag runtime was. The green flag ran for about 4.5 minutes. The caution ran for about, or not caution, but the commercial ran for about 3 minutes and 15 seconds. We should not be getting 50-50 coverage of the biggest race of the year and commercials. I understand that this is the time where TV wants to capitalize. I understand that this is where they make the most money. I understand that this is why NASCAR got such a huge TV deal. But really, it's not even that big anymore. Like, if you look back on it and what they're getting paid now, not that big of a deal. But I understand these things, but at the same time, if you deliver a good broadcast, more people are going to keep tuning in. And more people keep tuning in, that's more money. And how do you get more money? By having more people watching commercials, watching your product. That brings in commercials. So I get why Fox pushed so many commercials, but at the same time, you can't have a 50-50 split of the product you're showing and commercials. You just can't, because it doesn't offer a good experience to the fan. And a lot of people are saying, oh, well, it's either that or paying, or doing it like UFC does and paying $80 to watch every race, or watch a race each time. No, it's really not. I mean, NASCAR gets what? A consistent 3 to 4 million. You have them on a streaming service where you pay $12 a month. You have 3 million people paying $12 a month just to watch NASCAR races. That's a crazy number. That is a lot. And then you add in the fact, like, if you do it on Amazon Prime, you're gonna keep those subscriptions for the whole year because of everything else you have to offer. So that I think that's what NASCAR should be looking at when they start doing a TV deal. Is, cable TV is a big part of NASCAR, and it will be for the next few years, but eventually that's gonna fade out of existence. We should not have a TV deal based around cable television, because it's just not going to be sustainable with the rise of all of these different streaming platforms. NASCAR should be looking at getting on a streaming platform, whether it be something like Amazon Prime, Hulu, Netflix, just something. Netflix has made things of NASCAR. I think that could be a great partnership because Netflix doesn't have any other sports. If they partner with NASCAR, that could be something. And I mean, Netflix is in deep water for what they're doing. So that's a way to kind of counteract the subscriptions that they might be losing. And they charge around that $10 to $12 range. So I think that's exactly what they should be looking at. Is some sort of streaming service, as well as having cable partners to put the races on cable. Because, the majority of NASCAR fans are an older population that doesn't use the streaming services, but at the same time, you have to target younger fans that do use them. And you can't just say, oh, well, they can just watch it on the Fox Sports app. Well, guess what? You either need nobody's gonna really tune in to the Fox Sports app unless there's something they already want to watch. And if there's something they already want to watch, they aren't gonna worry about watching NASCAR if they don't care about NASCAR. If somebody's watching college basketball and they see the Daytona 500s on, they're gonna scroll right past it because they're just trying to watch college basketball. But I mean, like, I'm kind of just repeating myself at this point, but I mean, it is just ridiculous how much Fox doesn't care or doesn't listen to what everybody says about them. Nobody likes the cartoons. I get it, they do it for every other sport. I haven't seen anybody really care about it in the other sports. But in NASCAR, it just doesn't work. Kyle Busch does not have a six-pack and built like John Cena. He just doesn't. Just put up a normal picture. But I mean, the on-track product for Daytona, it was okay. I think if you're casually just watching it and you see side by side for an entire race, you think, oh my god, this is the greatest thing ever. But really, the cars aren't going anywhere. Denny Hamlin kind of talked about this on his podcast. You're just stuck in the two lanes because of how much drag that the next gen car has. Dude, there's not enough. There's too much weighing the car, pushing the car back against the air for it to be able to get a run and sustain it before help actually gets to the bumper. So you try to make that third lane, and then it's just you're all the way to the back. I mean, we kind of saw it with happened to William Byron actually, about midway through the race or midway through this third stage. He got put in the middle, and well, yeah, it's the middle, so you're gonna fall back. He fell like a rock. He dropped all the way to the back, and there's no getting back up to the front. You can't move. That's why I think that we were set up for a better finish with the car strung out, because they could pull out with their teammate and get a move, because there wasn't a huge line. It was just a short little line. And so, you pull out and you can have enough help to push it through. So I think that's something that needs to be kind of looked at and tweaked. Next gen car is only in its second year, so I understand it's not perfect. But, we're working towards it, and I appreciate that. But another thing about Daytona is Riley Herbst got a top 10 in his first career Cup start. He is the only driver in NASCAR history to get to the top 10 in their first start in the ARCA West, East, ARCA Main Series Truck Xfinity Cup starts. The first driver in history I think they're the third. He's the third to do it in our first Truck Xfinity Cup start. So with that being said, is he the guy that Ford wants? Is Riley Herbst secretly good? Probably not. He's really not. He's not a win. He doesn't win. He's not gonna win. But we saw who else does Ford have? Because Kevin Harvick is retiring after this year, so somebody has to go to the 4. And honestly, Almirola is probably retiring in the next year or so. So somebody's gonna have to go to the 10. And unless Zane Smith gets that spot, but I think front row is gonna try to keep Zane Smith, and in that case they might drop Todd Gilliland. So you have Todd Gilliland go to the 4. Is Todd Gilliland gonna be in the 4 next year? Is Riley Herbst gonna prove himself in Xfinity now that there's an open spot for competition? Because Gregson's gone, Gibbs is gone, Allmendinger's gone. A lot of those top guys are gone. Cole Custer is by far the championship favorite. But at the same time, we saw what he did in Cup. He got one lucky win at Kentucky in his rookie season. He was a first-round playoff exit and hasn't made the playoff since. He's like NASCAR's Jordan Poole. That's a bad comparison, but he's not ready for Cup, but he's too good for Xfinity. He's like reminds me of Daniel Suarez, honestly. He has a good run here and there, but at the same time, you just don't think he's good enough. So maybe he just needs to run with Rick Ware Racing for a whole season, like Suarez ran with Gaunt Brothers. and then just become a good driver. Honestly, I think that Gaunt Brothers stint is what made Daniel Suarez the driver he is today, because he learned what it's like to have to push your equipment and not just rely on it to do everything. But that's for another day. Another controversy that happened a couple weeks ago that I wasn't able to cover last week was on-track interviews. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, they shouldn't happen anymore" after the Brandon Brown incident was revisited. Are you? I don't understand. Yes, what happened to Brandon Brown was unfortunate. His win was overshadowed by a moment of a reporter trying to cover up what the fans were actually saying. It's unfortunate what happened to him, but his downfall is not a product of the on-track interviews. His downfall, I mean, I messed this up on Twitter. I'll say this. I said his downfall was his fault for accepting the LGB coin sponsorship. I shouldn't have said that. It was his father's fault, because it was whoever runs that team, which I was told was his father. So it is his father's fault if he runs that team. It is his fault that Brandon Brown in Brandon Built Motorsports does not exist. It is his fault. They had sponsorship from the lemonade company. I think Harry's Lemonade, I think that's what it's called. They had sponsorship for them. People tried telling me that, oh, they accepted the LGB coin because the sponsorship pulled out. No, they rejected the sponsor because they had LGB coin, which was an illegitimate sponsor trying to capture a moment that wasn't meant to be captured like that. It's unfortunate, but you can't blame the on-track interviews. I personally think they're better than the Victory Lane interviews, because Victory Lane, the driver has time to collect themselves and think about what they're going to say. The on-track, it's more personal. I mean, honestly, I think they should wait and let the driver celebrate before they shove a camera in their face. So that way, we see all these pictures of the driver celebrating with the camera crew right under him, and it ruins the entire picture. So I think, maybe just wait 30 seconds until after the driver's done celebrating, and then do the interview. But you can't say just, oh, get rid of it. For a fan base that hates change so much, they want a lot to be changed. But I guess I'll round out this NASCAR segment with my Fontana predictions. The last race of this configuration, which a lot of people are hating, that is getting repaved or getting reconfigured, even though it was very much due for a repave, very much. And the track would suck for the next 10, 15 years until it started getting worn out again, and everybody would be calling for it to be put off the schedule. And it's being reconfigured into a short track, which everybody is begging to be put on the schedule. But I don't get it. It's like fans don't want a short track unless it's 200 years old. Anyways, not to get off on a huge tangent, but my Fontana predictions, who I think is going to win. Honestly, I want to say my guy. I want to say my guy every week. William Byron's my guy. Fontana's not his track. I think that's actually his worst track. I remember for 3 years in a row he finished 15th, which is crazy to do over and over. But I think that Truex is gonna win Auto Club. He didn't win last year, and I just feel like he's ready to bring the fucking fire to the series. I think Truex wins it. He's won it before. He won it my first year watching, and I think he's due. He's due for a win, and it's gonna happen right this weekend. It's a track that suits him very well. He's really good at tracks like that, high speed tracks, technical tracks. I mean, that's Truex. So I'm really I feel like he's gonna win this week. But that's kind of it for my NASCAR section. We'll play some catch up in the NFL section with the Super Bowl. I'm just kind of gonna brush over this since it's nothing that hasn't been talked about yet. Was the Devontae Smith catch a catch? No, the ball hit the ground. It bounced into his chest again. Wasn't a catch. Was the Dallas Goedert catch a catch? No, but they got the call that it was 50-50 split. Okay? The fumble. Was that a fumble? It very well could have been. It was damn close to being a catch. Personally, I think it was an incompletion. So that's a call that helped the Eagles. So Eagles are up 2-1 on calls. Was it a hold? Yes, there was a hold. Did it affect the play? Not really. Shouldn't have been called. Doesn't matter. It was there. It got called. That's a 2-2 call for both teams. Eagles didn't get screwed by the refs. The Eagles got outplayed. The turf sucked. NFL should not have a quote-unquote new breed of grass for the biggest game of the year. Just use fucking grass. The commercials sucked. Nothing was funny. They shouldn't be charging $7 million fucking dollars for a 30-second commercial. To the NBA. The All-Star game. This is being recorded during the All-Star break. Don't know when I'm going to get this out, though. Should defense be played in the All-Star game? I don't know, man. It's a tough situation because then on one hand, you want to see a good game, and a good game involves good defense and good offense. But when you just see good offense, it's kind of stale because you see good offense, but what is good offense if there's no defense being played? So like on one hand, I understand it, but at the same time, it's the All-Star game. These guys are just trying to relax. It's the only break they get in the year, so they're just trying to chill. So I mean, like, I don't expect the big stars to really care about defense, because what do you get out of winning the All-Star game? Nothing. Unless you want to be the MVP, in which really that doesn't matter. Who looks at All-Star MVP as the godsend of ranking players all time? Not me. But there just has to be an incentive. We see it with the NFL too. Players don't care about the All-Star game or the All-Pro game. It doesn't matter. These guys don't care because it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. That's the same with the dunk contest. I mean, we're seeing G League players in the dunk contest. Why? Because it doesn't matter. And then even like I understand not wanting to do a dunk contest more than the All-Star game, because there is so much risk for injury when you do some of the dunks that these guys are doing. Like Mac McClung, he doesn't land worry on one of his dunks. He could have tore his ACL, and he's done. That could be his career. He's a G League player that's made $109,000 throughout his career. He made $100,000 in the dunk contest. $100,000. Are you expecting players that make $40 million a year to possibly put the rest of their season on the line for $100,000? No. I think you have to raise it to at least $1 million. It has to be at least $1 million. Then we might get bench players rather than G League players. We might get people that ride the bench. But if you're gonna get G League players, get people that specialize in dunking. Like Mac McClung, his only thing is that he dunks. Like that's the thing that he's known for. So it made sense to have him in there. Jericho Sims, he's big. I don't really know if he dunks. He's big. Kenny Martin Jr., he's a good. I think this year's dunk contest, for what it is now, had good participants. I think Kenny Martin Jr., if he just did better dunks, he could have rivaled McClung. But I think it was his second dunk or his first dunk where he went under the rim and then did that, like, I don't know how to describe it. But it was one of those dunks where I was like, damn, that's a good dunk. But you gotta have more than one of those. So how do we get it better? Just pay more. You're not gonna get Ja Morant in there for $100,000. You're gonna have to do more than that. And I have one last point, which is a hill that I will die on. And the reason I say this for last is because it'll restrict me. Because I want to try to keep this under 30 minutes or something like that. Nikola Jokic is the most overrated player of all time. With the age of advanced stats, that's where Jokic thrives. But on the basketball court, he does nothing impressive. There is no reason for Jokic to be the favorite for the MVP this year. There was no reason for him to be the favorite last year. Honestly, I think there was no reason for him to be the favorite the year before. I think that first year he won the MVP, Steph Curry was the most valuable player in the league. We saw what the Warriors looked like without him the year before. They were a lottery team. Their biggest addition was Kelly Oubre Jr. Kelly fucking Oubre. And Steph comes back, they're immediate contenders. Oh, and his second year he won the MVP. He wasn't. Oh, but he had terrible teammates and he led him to the 6th seed. Or the 5 seed or whatever they were. So? Luka had terrible teammates and he was the 5th seed. Luka's second best player before the Kyrie trade was Spencer Dinwiddie. And then after that it was Dorian Finney-Smith. Or I guess Christian Wood. But Christian Wood doesn't start. So he has to start the games with a lineup of Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, Tim Hardaway Jr. and Maxi Kleber. Tell me a world where that team even thinks about the play-in. That team is tanking for Wembanyama. But they have Luka. So they were the 5th seed. Before the Kyrie trade, they were the 5th seed. Now with Kyrie, they're even better. I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent about this year. This is supposed to be last year. I'm sorry about that. Last year, Luka led that team to the Western Conference Finals. Now you tell me how that isn't most valuable player. Tell me where that team is without Luka, and you cannot tell me that they are in the playoffs. You cannot. Even if you want to go beyond Luka, Joel Embiid was better. Joel Embiid was a lot more dominant. Scored a lot more points. Oh, but he had James Harden. For half the year, he didn't. And that's what hurt Embiid's case. He got James Harden halfway through the year. So how could he be MVP if he had one of the best point guards / shooting guards? Well, I don't know, because without him, that team's not really gonna go far. I mean, it's a solid team. It's a lower end playoff team, but without him, they're not going very far. But I mean, we're looking too much at advanced stats when advanced stats are very easily skewed. They're not perfect. Like, you can't just look at usage rating and say, well, he has the highest usage, so he's the most valuable player to his team. It doesn't work like that. You have to actually watch. You can't just look at the stats and say, yep, him. Yep. And then, even this year, we have the Luka thing. We have Tatum, who's leading the Boston Celtics, which, honestly, he has enough. Tatum is playing great. You put an average player on that team, they're probably not gonna be as dominant as they are, but they're still gonna be that 1 to 3 seed. So I'd honestly take Tatum out of that argument, even though he was my prediction to win it. Not that he was gonna deserve it, but he was my prediction because I see how the media likes him. But I mean, you look even further in the league. You have Ja Morant on the Grizzlies. You have Luka, obviously. You have Steph before his injury. You have AD before his injury. You have, I'm trying to think of somebody else. You have Giannis, who's low-key carrying the Bucks right now. You have Donovan Mitchell. I mean, there's a lot of people in the league that I would say have a stronger case than Jokic. I mean, this team was praised in 2020 for being so good. Oh, Jamal Murray's so good. Jokic is so good. Michael Porter Jr. is going to be so good. Aaron Gordon's playing so well with the Nuggets. If they're so good, why is he the reason that they're winning, according to you? Not to me. I don't think he's the reason they're winning. I think what Jokic is doing is very replaceable. You could get somebody else that does the exact same thing, and if you make him the centerpiece, he's gonna have very similar advanced stats. Alperen Şengün played very similar to Jokic, and when he did, people recognized it. I knew he was like that before. But are we just gonna start giving MVP to playmaking centers? Oh, he's shooting over 70% because all of his shots come under the basket. If you shoot an arm length away from the basket, I'm hoping you're making that 70% of the time. But, like I said, Jokic overrated. Take that and do whatever you want. Maybe we'll talk about it next time. I'll see you guys.